Oh, it's kind of scary when you pin yourself, huh?
Yeah, and you can see yourself, or if you want to pin me so that you can see me, interacting with you, that's cool too. So well, first of all, I just want to welcome everybody that is here for the Swarm session, and we're really excited tonight. Monday nights we typically have something, whether it's with your own team or once a month we have our Swarm sessions. But we called this special Swarm session tonight because Darin Olien, who is the man, he's Darin Olien. I don't know if he needs any introduction, especially in our community of people, but Darin has been a big part of what we do and what has been given to us by the company in developing Shakeology and many of the other nutritional stuff. When I heard that he was open to doing calls, I was all in to having him on here. He recently came out with a book called Superlife. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. But tonight is going to be, one of those nights where we can hear, there's a lot when we're coaches out here in the network. Not all of us are experts at the stuff. We've used the stuff, we like the stuff, we recommend the stuff to other people, but we don't know a lot of the things that and the reasons behind why what we have to offer people is so powerful and all those things. So Darin, I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know that you've got a lot going on. You recently got married, right?
I did.
Yeah. So
That's
how's that going?
aw-
Awesome.
awesome. Yeah,
Which,
I didn't think it would happen, but it's good. It's really
well,
good.
I could just tell you there's a lot of jealous women on our team right now that are going, damn it, you got married. I was hoping,
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's good stuff. So you've been busy. You got married. You wrote a book. I would love for the team though, and for the coaches to learn a little bit about who you are outside of Beachbody.
Sure.
I know that you were a former athlete. I know, so why don't you just share a little bit of your story, like who you are, and then we'll get into the Beachbody stuff.
Sure. Well, I guess I'll take it back because it kind of informs me a lot of who I am and why I am doing what I'm doing and why I formulated all of that. And it really, as weird as it sounds, it really goes back to when I was born. As
Mm-hmm.
crazy as that is, I was I was 3.5 pounds. I was 2 months premature. And that was 1970. So it was a little gnarly. There was 50-50 chance of me even living. And the reason I say that is because that's kind of set me up in a trajectory of my life. And my first signaling was life is hard and fragile. And I had a laundry list of things when I was growing up. I never was obese, but I certainly had a lot of childhood issues, from learning disabilities to resting heart rate of 120 beats per minute, to just all kinds of weird things. That informed me of that. Oh, wow, this is going to be a tough go. And at 13, I did my first cleanse, just instinctually. I'm from Minnesota, in the middle of nowhere. And I had a father who was a professor of agriculture at the University of Minnesota, which also I didn't realize, and it kind of touched me. And I only figured that out later in life, because I've now worked with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of farmers, essentially. So at 13, I did my first cleanse, and it gave me my first bit of information, which was powerful in that, oh, wow, I did a grapefruit cleanse. Don't ask me how or why. I just happened. And the next thing I knew, I felt better. And it was the first significant thing that I had done, having challenges as a kid. That 13 years old, I felt the difference. And of course I continued on to be a regular kid. And at 16, I then grabbed my second powerful, thing or choice that I made, is I picked up my first dumbbell. And that significantly helped not only my head, but also my body. And
Mm-hmm.
cut to, from 16 to 18, I gained like 50 pounds, and then turned into an athlete, and was cut to starting a fullback, running back, in college. And then I got a career-ending back injury my sophomore year. And then that that informed me of the next biggest thing was I was so frustrated with I just see that this nice little rip in my shirt. That informed me. My next biggest thing was that I'm pissed off. I'm depressed,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not going to be like this anymore. And this has already been a hard enough struggle. And so I then professionally decided I'm going to switch my majors and learn about this stuff, learn about the body, learn about nutrition, learn about physiology. So I changed my majoring and then eventually got my degree in exercise phys and nutrition. And then I ended up working individually with people for a long time, athletes and injuries and one-on-ones, and got privately lectured by professors about nutrition and, and for the next 7 years in Colorado. And then all the while I've been formulating, because the more you know, the more you see.
Mm-hmm.
So the more I learned about nutrition and food, the more I saw how bad the industry was and how wrong formulations were and how insane it was that foods are on the shelves that they have what they have in it. And so that frustration led to kind of the culmination of me playing with formulas and then starting to travel, but to my father passing away of alcoholism in 2005. And then I said, what am I really going to do now? Don't just play around anymore. We need to make an impact. And little did I know that powerful message that I sent myself and the universe was starting to really take fold. And I then aggressively started traveling, and I had formulas in my head. I had everything, and I was kind of, days away from launching my own formulas. And that's when the Isabel and Carl came.
Yeah. So
And
talk about that a little bit. I mean, that relationship with Isabel
yeah,
and how that, because I mean, you were already what 20 years into studying nutrition and
yeah.
going
I
through.
mean, at that exactly. I had already dedicated my life to it. I dedicated myself to this because I needed to get myself better, and then I was dedicating my life to it. So my mission was already happening. And it just so happens that the guy that I hired was working at a little food barn, little nutrition place in Malibu, and he ran into Isabel,
Mm-hmm.
and they had this conversation, and she was playing around with some stuff, some nutritional products. And she said, well, we're kind of looking for someone to help us formulate with my then boyfriend, Carl. And anyway, that led to a meeting, and we serendipitously um, met. Well, we had set up a meeting and we met, and it was kindred spirits. It was everything that I was seeing in the world and everything that I was believing in, and what I saw Isabel kind of mirrored. And it was just like, wow, I've never met someone on the same page. And then of course I met Carl, and it was, hey, Carl convinced me, because at that point I had a lot of relationships around the world. I had new superfoods I had found. I had deep relationships with people. I had essentially the source for so many superfoods. And so I had all these other companies kind of realizing that, and realizing that supply is king in their
Right.
business. And I had turned down, I think three companies wanting to give me partnerships in their company. And because I just wanted to do it myself, and I just didn't see anyone doing it right. And man, when I met Carl, he's so straight and he's so convicted, that when he said, I want to affect the lives of, I think he said hundreds of thousands of people, but he might have said millions then, because I think he probably would have changed it to millions then. But, and I believed him. And so when he said that, he goes, I want to, match our nutrition products to our exercise videos. And at that point, I didn't even know about Beachbody. And so, but I believed him, and I certainly had this connection with Isabel. And I said, cool, I'm in. So if you're not going to limit my formulation capacity, if you're going to let me do it how it should be done, then just basically leave me alone because I'm going to go do it.
Right.
And so I put my head down and I spent a lot of time formulating. And it's Shakeology. Shakeology is a very interesting product in that it's the individual parts are not as strong as the whole itself, right? So Shakeology itself is an alchemy, and it takes a long time to understand the relationship between superfoods and the complements that they're actually giving to each other. That's why they say surround yourself with good people. They don't say get rid of people in your life. There's a reason why group is strong. There's a reason why superfood alchemy is stronger than the individual parts. It's the same thing, right? So that whole world then. So essentially, Shakeology was birthed 2 years later, and it's a forever changing formula. Out of its own success, it's hard to keep up with certain parts of it. But at the same time, the blessing to that over the years is that we always, not once have we not improved the formula. Mm-hmm. So we're always improving the formula based on, hey, we might have some new research, we might have a new superfood, we might see one superfood is not as strong as the other one, so we'll take the lower one out to add in the other components that we need to. So we're always improving. And the great thing, and I always laugh at the research and development team and the quality assurance teams, that now there's this huge team that's supporting this, and I can get into some of the aspects of that in a little bit. But I always laugh at them when they're struggling with trying to keep this huge formula and this massive population of people buying Shakeology, that it's just job security. So don't get too upset that you're struggling, because the reason why it's so complex is the reason you have a job. So anyway, it's kind of
and that's something, as individual coaches that are out here that aren't experts at this stuff, we put a lot of our trust and faith into you. And a lot of times, when people ask me about this, I say, look, I trust Darin because I know this guy has lived and breathed this stuff for his whole life. And I also trust Carl. And you kind of hit on that too. When you met Carl, you had that instinct, like, this guy's legit, Yeah. In a corporate world where profit is always king, I mean, when you look at the food industry, it's all about profits, and they're willing to cut corners in order to make more profits. But I know that, when Carl looked at you, he said, I want you to make the best thing possible. Let's, we'll deal with the rest of it later, but let's first make that best thing. So it is a complex formula, and that you guys are always improving. I mean, how does Shakeology differ now than when you first came out? Because I was around in 2009 when it first launched.
Yeah. Well, I think you're always the things that people don't see and the things that don't change on the label, but that are changing, is that you still have the same ingredient. It's just like maca is still on the label, but there's so many things that are improving in the processing. Right. There's so many things that you learn and how to learn in the growing process. There's so many things that you learn that improves in the processing of it. It's a tricky thing when you're taking essentially a medicinal plant that's been used by indigenous people for a long time, and understanding what those markers are that make it what it's supposed to be, and that give it its contributive aspects of a plant. And so when you understand that by processing it, you can either destroy those or preserve them. We're always, this is again the forever challenge of our quality assurance team, is that you're making sure that when you're moving, say, from one plant to another or one manufacturing to another, and you have to understand that the plant itself is delicate in what it is, and the way you process it is extremely important. And we have so many kind of steps in place in order for that to happen. So I think the one thing that I would say to you and everyone is that we're always improving what is existing, because as we amp up and the volumes of our requirements are so much more. It's easy if you don't have your continuous eyes on your suppliers and growers, that it's easy to crank up the heat over 150 degrees and kind of fry your material because it dries faster.
Right.
Whereas some of these things are very delicate, and the antioxidant capacities and phytonutrients, that if you start cranking those up over 115, 120 degrees, this denaturing is happening, and then you're kind of losing the vitality of what you're trying to preserve, which undercuts the formula and undercuts the product and undercuts the actual gift that plant is to a body. So these are always things that we're constantly looking at, improving, watching, and investigating. There's all kinds of different drying techniques based on whatever plant there is. But superfoods are always something new. I always throw in, whenever the opportunity, I always throw in something new into the mix. And if we can vet those suppliers and make sure that they can expand to our growth, then we'll do it. And so anyway, it's a forever changing, moving formulation, which is always going towards improving. So, which is, just as a caveat to that, which is why I'm still here, Ryan, or Tommy, sorry, I was just talking to another Ryan. Tommy, that essentially I'm independent, right? I am obviously connected to Shakeology and the formulas I produce, and I'm a part of Beachbody family, but essentially I'm not an employee. So if anything went south along the way, if the integrity of the formula was such that I didn't believe in it, I, like you, are independent. Right. I would just go, it's not going to work for me, so see you later, because what I did was what I did at the time based on not having limitations. And if the company were to change those principles and those ethics, then Darin just wouldn't be here, because that's clear to me, just between me looking in the mirror every night and selling a product. I have plenty of things I can do in life. I don't need to sell my soul to sell some powder. So that's I say that and make an emphasis on that because that's why I'm here, because we continue to improve and we continue to create new stuff, and we live in that integrity. And believe me, over the years, Carl's had plenty of opportunity to not live up to the high standard, and had many opportunities to fold at that, and he has always stepped up. It's extremely important for all of you new coaches, or even existing coaches, to really know that. And because I'm closer to you than I am to a Beachbody employee, so.
Right. Well, and that's a rare thing in the corporate world, in the shake world, and then, when you look at some of the other companies that are offering shakes, what would you say is probably like the primary? Because I know, like, out here we run into people who want to compare it to Isogenics, or want to compare it to Herbalife, or want to, whatever other companies are out there. Obviously, we believe that what we have is good for people, and it's been formulated in a great way. Compared to what's out there on the shelves, though, because sometimes it's hard for us to understand what's on the shelves because we're not the experts at the labels. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, Tommy, it's difficult to know. It's really, the label doesn't even tell you the full story, because the label has its own regulations. The FDA has its own rules. You can have things saying natural this and natural that, and then if you actually look in the bylaws of something that natural, that they let certain things in. You remember the whole vanilla story, right? That was very much of a similar thing when we really, really wanted to get a vanilla out, and we were kind of in the 11th hour of like, hey, I think we're locked on a formula, and we just have to get this flavor company in line. And I remember on shouting matches with flavor companies, because it wasn't dawning on me that my natural that I was explaining to them was different than the FDA's natural. So I finally had to just break it all down. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Because I keep telling you, don't put this stuff in. It's not supposed to have propylene glycols or these flow agents and all this chemical crap. And why do we keep testing it? We haven't. And he goes, yeah, but it's natural. I'm like, yeah, but this is stuff that we've already told you are not going to be okay in our formula. And the next thing you know, I look deep into the FDA bylaws and it's okay by the FDA and to still call it natural. So that's the long story of saying, good luck understanding what is on most of the labels. It's tricky. It's a tricky thing. I can tell you from, superfoods, I pretty much know where everyone's getting their stuff. And it's still confusing. Supplements, I would just try to go on the company's reputation, try to get as much transparency as possible. And a bargain with supplements is usually a prescription for disaster. And really you do pay for it. A good quality supplement is practicing, ethical practices, and they're paying more for those things not to be cut with everything from, flow agents to maltodextrins to sawdust. So there's not really a good bargain in the supplement world. So when you see bargains, don't buy your stuff from, the GNCs and the Walmarts and the Costcos and all of that stuff. That's not a good place to buy any supplements, just because it's like Wild West, and the regulations on supplements are regulated, yes, but they're not actually, there's no one to watch over and make sure people are actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. The only thing that we have to rely on is the integrity of the people and the company itself, because the only way that the FDA is going to look into something is as if a problem has already happened. And that's a really, really bad and crazy and gnarly and dangerous situation. So there's very few companies that spend the time and the resources into their quality assurance and their research and development like we do. I can't speak to the Isogenics of the world and the Visalis. I mean, I can look on the label and pretty much know it's a bunch of, I don't want to say too much about that.
Not stuff that you would put in your shake. That's
no, there's no way. There's no way. I mean, and this is, listen, you have to understand that the reason why I was making supplements, going to make supplements by myself anyway, is because no one was doing it very well.
Right.
And I always said to myself, I'd watch all these MLM companies out there, and how are you not? Because the intuitive person in me was always like, if you make a really good product, of course people are going to share it. Why wouldn't they? So I never understood why these Herbalifes and all these people would make these just so inferior products and try to market it based on this macro view of nutrition that was so horrible. There is no such thing as a macro nutrition. It doesn't exist. When we say, what I mean by that is proteins, fats, carbohydrates, sugars, all of that stuff. Yeah, it's an indication, but we don't live in a macro view of nutrition. We live in a micro view of nutrition. Nutrition is based on, can your cells receive it or not? Plain and simple. That's it. And if your cells can't receive those nutrients, then if your cells are unhealthy, you're unhealthy. If your cells are unhealthy, you will wake up one day and have a degenerative problem. That's why most degenerative diseases are killing Americans. And then other countries adopting the same lifestyle, which is insane. So, the part of Shakeology, that's why we left most of these superfoods as whole, right? We left them as carefully as we could, process them and dry them and get them into a powder so they could deliver some of these nutrients. We did it in a way that left, as much as we could, left nature alone, so that those cellular signatures could be received, and give the health that they've been actually, been doing for thousands of years. So that's what we did, and that's a massively different thing than pumping up a shake and making some, put some sugar in it or lower the sugar and put, chemical sweeteners in there, and then, talk about their proteins and fats when it has it's micro depleted. So anyway, that's one way of saying it without bashing.
No, I get what you're saying, because we deal with that all the time out here. People are always asking about the labeling practices, and what's on the label and what's not, as far as like, is it certified organic? Is it gluten-free? Those sorts of things. And I think we live in a society where everyone wants to look and see that on the label. So maybe help us understand a little bit why we don't have like an organic certified organic label, or,
Yeah, it's pretty easy in its complexity to explain that. I mean, there's a lot of these things are very, like, a lot of these materials that are in Shakeology, some of them didn't even exist on the market when I first formulated them. So when you realize that a lot of these ingredients are coming from third world situations, putting an organics, first off, in their growing process, it's already sound, it's already ethical, it's already sustainable. And of course you can improve on those things all the time. And they're already grown at a high capacity of integrity in the plant. It's not saying every one of them, but our suppliers. So when you're going for an organic cert, and you have an ingredient that is not as widely known as, say, white sugar, you have a challenging situation because you have a third world situation and a requirement by a first world nation. So therefore, in moving towards the organic cert, that is 100% on the farmer to abide by all of the rules, regulations, and most importantly for them, money. Mm-hmm. The thousands of dollars it takes for them every year is exponentially greater than it is towards the same amount of money. So it could be the dollar value could be 10 to 50 times higher in that region as opposed to it being here for us. So that burden goes on them. And so consider this, that if none of the processing and growing and improving of the plant and getting it to the powder that we require would be improved by organic certifying, then why would we put a burden of pressure on the farmer? Right? Yeah. So I'm not saying that, listen, organic is incredibly important in this day and age. However, it's not important in terms of, it's a stamp, sure. But if we have, which we do, our quality assurance team, and we're testing for everything, we're testing for pesticides, herbicides, residues, all of that stuff. We're testing for the fingerprint of what that plant actually is, and the strength capacity of those phytonutrients. We're testing for all of that. So we already have our standard. So our last thing is we want to burden the farmer more, because ultimately we would just have to be paying more for something that's still the same quality. Right. So that is some of the truth of what happens.
That makes complete sense too, because as coaches, we're not always in tune with the fact that you have these relationships with these suppliers. We don't. We see the product in the bag, and we see what we're doing with the end user, when we're promoting challenge groups and selling challenge packs and just getting people to drink it, every day. We're not really, and all of this behind the scenes stuff, all this work that you have done for years and years to build relationships with suppliers. To like when I hear you describe that, it's like, why would you put more stress on that relationship and raise the cost of everything when it's not going to improve what people are actually drinking just to say that we have a stamp? I totally understand that. So now
And
talk to us too. Was there something else that you wanted to add to that?
yeah, I'm just saying, like, some of those situations are matured, like our maca is organic. I don't even think we put it on the label. It's
Right.
just, and our Yukon is organic, because some of these farmers I've known for 10 plus years, and they've been able to mature with the industry. And because of that, hell, I met some of these farmers, and they barely had enough, they barely had money to eat, and now they're doing really well. So in situations, of course, we'll support the situation for that organic cert if and when that's possible. So again, like, if it's possible, we'll do it. But if it doesn't make sense, then it doesn't actually improve our bottom line of improving the product, then it doesn't make sense. So, but that's where we need to share that information to you guys so that you understand.
Well, yeah, because we get nailed with that question. When we're out here, that's what people are nailing us with. They say, well, it doesn't say gluten free, so I can't drink it.
Right.
Or it doesn't. And so, and us not being experts or not having that deeper understanding, it sometimes makes it. We get those objections from people, and
Yeah.
even though I can say, look, all I can do is throw my own personal story behind it and say, listen, I know the people that have made this, and they come with the utmost integrity. I mean, you've verified that tonight, even in your relationship with Carl,
Yeah.
And for me, that's what I put my trust behind, right? I put my trust behind the fact that we have incredible people of high ethics and integrity that are out there doing all this on our behalf to make it easier for us to know that we have the best thing possible that we could possibly, one, consume for ourselves, right? And then two, recommend that other people consume as well. One of the questions that a lot of people, have or have had, and as somebody who has a little 2-year-old girl, I mean, we let our daughter drink Shakeology, right?
Yeah.
22 months. So every night she gets a little, probably a quarter of a shake in her little sippy cup, and all that stuff. And I know that, there's always that question is, because we get a lot of people that say, what about during breastfeeding? What about, during pregnancy? What about children themselves? I mean, what's your take on all that?
Yeah. So I mean, generally speaking, if there's no health concerns, for any one of those situations, the mother, the child, and any stage of that, of course, these are some of the greatest nutrient dense foods in the world. That being said, they have a lot of interactions that can happen, and being pregnant and breastfeeding, any number of things can happen with how someone has taken care of themselves up to that point, and there could be all of that. So that being said, I mean, sure, I mean, if there's nothing wrong, then you can, as a mother, I mean, Isabel very much drank Shakeology through her pregnancy with Danny and during breastfeeding. And I've, a lot of women over the years definitely have done that. So again, it's a very individual thing, and should make sure that the healthcare provider, hopefully they're a holistic one and not a very smart but naive about nutrition allopathic doctor, because there's a lot of those. But make sure you get some, if you're really worried, then just get a professional to make sure you're not having any reactions. But that being said, if I were pregnant, which I'm not, I definitely would be drinking Shakeology. And funny little story, actually, when I was finishing up the formulation, I had an unmarked bottle in my place, and my goddaughter from Colorado was over, and she was maybe 10 or 12 or something like that. And I said, "Hey, Raven, can I make you a little shake for breakfast?" She goes, "Yeah." And so I made her a little chocolate Shakeology, and she drank it. And she goes, "Oh my God, this is so good. Could you make this for me every day so I don't have to eat the school's food anymore?"
Mm.
And I say that because that uninhibited, instinctual child just devoured it. And I knew at that point that the formulation was pretty much locked, because the children really respond to it. And if anyone's worried about a child, then just take a quarter, take the serving size down and just try it there. And
Mm-hmm.
and just the child will pretty much give you some feedback. So just if you have questions about that, then just take it easy with it. And again, consult your doctor if you're really worried.
Right. Well, and I know, I mean, it's something that my wife refused to not have it during her pregnancy.
Yeah.
She's like, look, anything that is going in my body is fed to my child. I want to make sure that our child has that. And, someone else said,
Smart mama.
all these parents, they don't hesitate to throw a McDonald's cheeseburger down their throat or some chicken nuggets, but they
I
want to.
tell you, isn't that the funniest thing? It's the
Yeah.
funniest thing, because if you knew what was in your Franken food, you would never even let it be in the same room, let alone eat it. And that's that's there's some of that I touch in the book too, that I wrote. It's just kind of this common sense that we kind of just gave over in our culture is just kind of astonishing to me. And listen, I am one of the culture that gave it over. I'm one of the people. I grew up around it in southern Minnesota, and with just this world of processed, kind of fatally convenient food. And it is kind of my mission. One of my missions is to get people back to eating real food again. And even, people say, I love this question that people say, well, Shakeology isn't real food. And yes and no. I always advocate, drinking plenty of water, eating whole, fresh foods, organic, obviously, and locally grown. But why do we require these superfoods that are from different places on the planet? Because have you ever looked around? Do you ever see where we're at in life right now? I'm sitting here in front of you, in front of a computer that's emitting EMF waves at me, right? So my body's receiving stress on a level that we've never obviously even come close to having. We're psychologically stressed from the different aspects of just having our life. We're getting hit with 80,000 new chemicals being emitted in our atmosphere every year that are untested, unregulated, in our water, in our air, in our food, all of that stuff. The point is that we're getting stressed out beyond our wildest imagination. And on top of it, we're eating food that is proven and researched that the moment we eat this processed food like McDonald's, it's actually not life-giving, enhancing in our body, that our body actually fights it. Our first instinct of the body is to fight the quote-unquote food that you're ingesting. So now you have nutritional stress on top of it, and your body's behind. Your body is doing everything it can. It already spends 60 to 80% of its energy all day just detoxing itself, just trying to keep equilibrium, just as a course of having a body and living, not to mention all of these things I shared with you about the environmental stresses. So why do we need something like Shakeology? Why do we need these medicinal plants and these superfoods that have been used indigenously around the world for tens of thousands of years? Because A, they've been proven, and B, we need freaking help. It's like our bodies are getting the crap beat out of it, and we wonder why we're depressed. We wonder why chronic diseases are the leading cause of us, dying. And then we run to the doctor, which is giving us prescription meds that will never, ever, 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 ever make you healthy. It can only get you through the symptomologies of something. So we have to keep pharmaceutical in its right place culturally. They're not a source of an answer for health. They could be a catalyst, right? So I'm not poo-pooing all drugs or medicine by any means, but we have to put them in the right context, because if we're over giving ourselves flu shots and medications, then we're creating super bugs in our atmosphere. Our microbes are getting all out of whack, and then once those are out of whack, our whole body's out of whack. So, it's these things that when I ask myself the question, what do we require, is the first question I asked when I was creating Shakeology. So there's a reason why ashwagandha and maca and astragalus and cordyceps and reishi and all of these master grandfather powerful adaptogenic herbs, along with all of its other cohorts in the formula, there's a reason why they're there, is because of the answer to that question and the things that I see around. And that's why we need Shakeology. That's why we need superfoods, because we need the help, and these foods have been proven. So it's like we can't live in delusion. The only place we live in delusion is in our head. Our body has to deal with the reality that is existing all around us. It's the reality that just because you have a point of view about a food and you won't eat it, or you have a point of view that hey, I want to live and I want to eat my McDonald's food. That's an interesting point of view that you have in between your head and or between your ears, that your body still then has to deal with the reality of you making that choice. And that's the scary thing, that people are running around with all these ideas of how to eat, and even the fads, and it's okay to do this, and I just want to live, and you don't live that way. I'm like, well, then you and I have a massively different understanding, and certainly a massively different manual to life than each other. So, my point of view about, I know it's just a big run on rant right now, but my point of view about life is, and there's a reason why the title of my book is called Superlife. That's not just some marketing thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually from the depths of what I believe in. It's like, if I'm here, which I am, this is my life. This is my life. My father gave his life. I am the son of him, and this is life. What do I want? I want a super life. I want to live life in the greatest way possible on every level, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. I want to react to life in the joy of it and the fun of it. I don't want to have to worry about my body, dragging my body around, being sluggish in my body. I want to be able to have fun and play. And if I have kids, I want to play with them. If there's a mountain there I want to run up, I want to run up it. If there's a waterfall, I want to jump in it. All of that is why we need this super nutrition. So that's the reason and the genesis behind all of my formulas. It's the reason and the genesis of why I wrote the book, to give us back this information that somehow we just gave it away and we lost it, or we got born into this weird culture of food and healthcare. Let's really take care of our health and learn about our bodies, and then apply that knowledge. And that's really what it's all about. And I'll take a breath.
No, it's good, man. I mean, I love it when you go on a rant. Which is awesome. So tell us a little bit more about the book. Obviously, all of this stuff is coming out in this book, right? And I mean, there's a lot of great reasons why we would want to read it.
Yeah.
I mean, which, and you just kind of gave us a glimpse to that. I mean, so tell us about the book, the writing of the book and what we can expect from that and get from that.
Well, I can almost guarantee you'll learn something.
Right.
So at least there's that. And if you don't, I personally will give you your money back. You'll at least learn something. Because what I did was, the first thing when I got approached to write the book, they said, what do you want to write it on? And the first one was, well, I'll write it on superfoods. It's been my world. And the reality is that I wanted to write it on the foundations of health, as I call them, the 5 life forces. Because once you understand the umbrella or the biosphere that you live in, and that is you, then your choices will inform how you thrive in that and not undercut it. So I get into things like hydration, but I kind of dive into it in a different way. I really start to understand, hydration is a whole workshop that we could do for a week, and you would be blown away, because water is less about this packing material that we think it is. And it kind of hydrates us, and it more kind of informs every organ and every cell throughout the body. If we're slightly dehydrated, then we're slightly affected greatly throughout our whole body. So I dive into hydration quite a bit. I dive into this very intimate dance between alkalinization and acidity, and how what we're eating, what we're drinking, what we're thinking even, which is amazing neuroscience that they're getting into, how it can acidify your physical body, and how acidification and out of balance can really massively affect every system of your body. And the food choices either leaves an alkaline positive response or an acid forming response. And by the way, that's kind of the myth of protein. The protein craze that we're currently in right now is creating some really big problems that quite frankly haven't manifested fully yet, but is something so people need to know about. Actually, I did Shailene's podcast the other day, and she really wanted me to talk more about the protein myth in there, because the reality is we get plenty of protein by just a diversity of foods, and we don't have to rely on all this stuff of overconsumption of meat and dairy and everything else. So then I get into detoxification systems, how important that is to maintain balance, oxygenation, how oxygen is so important, and how it's actually minimized. It's a lot more than breathing. And what else? So those are some of the main things, but if you undercut one, you undercut them all. So, and there's a lot of sub-chapters in there. I get a little into my superfood hunting. I have a lot of to-do lists at the end of each chapters. So there's a lot of pragmatic things that you can dive, and the response I've gotten is really amazing, because a book like this can get really, it can get really challenging, because it can get very heady, right? It can get very physiological. It can get very scientific. And I really tried to capture my voice in this. And the biggest thing we need to understand is this is a freaking miracle. I mean, this body, are you kidding me? If you don't think this is a miracle, try, if your finger gets cut, it just heals like right in front of you. It's astonishing that if you look at this body, it's just the most important thing is we're such an adaptive species that it's kind of the thing that burns us too. Because the first thing I say, even when I'm talking about hydration, what do you notice when you don't drink water that day? Not much. Like, hey, you could be drinking your coffee or your soda in its place, so you're kind of getting the sensation of being, but you don't notice it, because your body does everything it can to have you keep moving forward. So in fact, from an evolutionary standpoint, it doesn't want you to think about water, but it wants to give you enough energy so that you find water. Like, it's things like that. So when we do, 7% of America doesn't even drink an ounce of water a day. Do you realize how detrimental that is? So, it's these things that I try to kind of spark back and try to change the way that we're looking at things. And one other little sizzle that I throw out is a massively different way that we look at health in general. There was something that I mentioned this on another podcast too, and that there's turn of the century, there was this guy named Louis Pasteur, right? So he developed penicillin. He found penicillin essentially. And then that was like, hey, cool, the end of all disease, because this little penicillin can get rid of everything. But the reality is this other guy at the same time, his name was Antoine Becquemp, and he was this French scientist, and he was like, no, that's not it. That's never been it. All of our ancestors before that, and even our amazing scientists before that, that's not the point of view. The point of view is that we either host disease or we do not host disease. So what that is the environment that we create inside of our body either allows parasites, bacteria, or viruses to then have an environment that it can live in, or have an environment that it is invited out of. You understand? So basically, if you drink water and eat whole foods and create some alkalinity and all of those things and have high oxygen contents, basically the intelligence of the bacteria, viruses, disease, whatever it is, then knows that this will not be a healthy place for it to survive. So then, we have cancer cells, we have viruses. I have them passing in and out of me as we speak all the time. You don't catch colds. They either come in you and they leave because they can't live, or they're in an environment that they can live. So that's a massively different way to look at health, because it also puts the power back on you. What you do either generates health or it generates disease, right? So the healthy habits that you do, are you eating well? Are you exercising every day? Do you have some nice friends that you can laugh with? I mean, all of these things are based in these very, very strong principles that generate health, or they don't. And this is also talked about in the blue zones around the world, the people who live the longest around the world, in these little pockets of areas around the planet, and virtually the same things exist. That these principles are embedded in their culture. So what I want to do is kind of get those things back into the power of our choice again, rather than just kind of being a victim to, oh, that's just the way I am. No, that's the way you've created yourself to be. And so let's uncreate that and then create that which is a super life for you. And that's really what the mission is, and a few little nuggets.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's amazing. Just me listening, because I'm someone who's always struggled with weight, and I've struggled with food addictions, and and I fight that urge to drive through Wendy's and all that bull crap, and when I listen to you, I mean, it really begins with, and you said this, the first step is coming to a really deep appreciation that our body is a miracle, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, because it's how we value our bodies. It's how we value our bodies and how our bodies feel. I mean, we go out there and we wash our car, and we wax our car and try to, keep that in check. But until you value your own body the way that it should be, and then you make your choices according to that, because if there's a value to it, you won't put all of the food crap in there and make it feel terrible. So Darin, man, I appreciate you spending time. Where can we pick up the book? I mean, some of the coaches down here are probably going to want to do that. Where can I get the book? Is it super? Yeah,
absolutely. There's Amazon has it, Barnes and Noble has it, Superlife. You can go to my website, superlife.com. Also sign up for a newsletter. I got a bunch of cool information coming out. But yeah, Amazon, go leave a review. It'd be great. Because this is about paying it forward. This is not a book that I wrote just to write a book. This is a book that I wrote so that people can grab this information, use this information, and pay it forward in their own lives. So yeah, man, jump on the train and let's do this.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I appreciate you taking, almost an hour out of your busy life to come and spend it with us. I know that our coaches appreciate it, and we appreciate all you're doing out there on our behalf. And the best thing that we can do is go live by example. That's the first step,
That's right.
And that's the first vital behavior, right? Be a product of the product, which means really, guys, living by example. The choices that we make on a daily basis, are we choosing to appreciate our bodies enough to value what we're putting in it, to make exercise part of what we do? And then second, are we encouraging other people to value themselves the same way? So Darin, thank you so much for your time, man. We have this recorded. So guys, if you have other coaches that are going to want to listen to that couldn't be on the live call tonight, we're going to be posting that in the Swarm Cave But Darin, thank you for coming and spending time with our coaches and sharing your knowledge with us. It's definitely something we appreciate. So
you're so welcome, Tommy, and everyone else. Don't be strangers this year. I'm coming out more and more, so
good.
we'll keep it ripping.
All right, man. Thanks,
All
bro.
right.
I'll
All
talk
right.
to you guys later.
All right. Cheers. Bye.